So here's your basic steps. First thing is, we don't want to forget about the injured, because sometimes we can get wrapped up into this pretty good, right? Nope, you cannot leave until I talk to you. Stop the bleeding now. We'll deal with you in a few minutes, but you really need to get those people to medical facility first. Then you can talk to them after they're treated. Secure the incident scene, because a lot of stuff was going to happen where people are walking through and things like that. We had one guy that, we had an employee that called in and he said, hey, I just fell from a ladder at a remote location. He said, I'm not feeling good. I'm just going to go home. They said, go home. They went out to the scene that day. It had snowed the night before. You could see where the guy's tire tracks came up. You could see where he got out of the truck. They called him up. They said, John, just happened to notice. What ladder? Because all we see is that you pulled up and got out of the truck. There's no footprints over to the fixed ladder. What's going on? Oh, you caught me. I was embarrassed. I got out of the truck and slipped and fell. John, we're looking at the pictures here, buddy. And nobody fell outside of the truck either. All we see is footprints. Oh, you caught me again. I wanted the day off, and I thought that if I reported it, to you that as an accident, you'd let me have the day off. You see the problem here? But if they hadn't gone out there that day and started the investigation as soon as they did, they never would have understood. That snow could have melted, all that other stuff. That's part of securing that scene, taking pictures, starting that process as soon as possible, okay? Collecting the facts about the incident, interviewing, taking measurements, looking over the scene, whatever, even if it's just a near miss, just taking a look at those things and a few pictures helps even. Develop the sequence of events. What exactly happened, when it happened. This kind of lays out for you exactly the things that you can kind of take a look at, and it'll help you go down the road with it. How many people have seen, these cop shows? Because I'm going to refer to them a couple of times. They put you in a stark room, no carpet, stark lighting, right? The door locks behind you. Are you putting that person at ease? No, they're going to jail, right? You don't want them feeling that way. You want to know what honestly happened. You want to talk to that, okay? Be friendly and understanding. Let them know why you want the information. You're not out to hang someone, but you can't fix it until you understand what broke. You need the information from them. Keep an open mind. Again, going back to those cop shows, I love them too, by the way. One of the things you see them start, and it's more theatrical than anything else, but they start at the beginning, don't they? They got a dead body. I think he was pushed out of that third story up there. Yeah, I bet there was 5 guys up there. Look, you can kind of see that, automatically they're making up the story, aren't they? And it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the show. You don't want to be doing that. You want the evidence to take you where it will. So you have to keep the open mind. You can't let your thought patterns, my irritation with Shannon, we're joking here. But you wouldn't want to allow your judgment to cloud what happened here just because we may not get along at the moment. Ask open-ended questions and avoid asking why. Now wait a minute, isn't why an open-ended question? But what am I asking you to do if I ask you why? But I'm asking them to be very subjective. They're going to have to fit, well, in my opinion, the accident happened because of this, because that's why you asked why. You're not getting a clear answer. You're asking for their opinion when you ask why. You don't want why. You want everything else that's more substantial. Don't ask why. Thank them for their information when you're done. When you're interviewing them, make sure you repeat back to them the things that you're hearing, but rephrase it. How many people remember that movie, My Cousin Vinny? Now he's sitting there with the cop, and the cop goes, and then you shot the clerk. I shot the clerk? He admitted. He had testified in court, didn't he? He shot the clerk. He said, and then I shot the clerk. He didn't put the question mark in there, did he? Make sure that you're on the same page with these folks. Memory fallibility. This is that study that I put in the back of the book for you, but one of the things I wanted to touch on is that there's a lot of things that can happen here. If you sit down with these folks and you want to do it as soon as possible, you ask them to accurately retell the story. They're going to do the best they can in accurately retelling that story. All right? The problem here comes into this. How you ask questions as an interviewer and the other things that they got in their head in the meantime between when this situation happened, the incident happened, and now that you're interviewing, All those things are going to come into play and can affect that process of interviewing them, okay? So that third party, matter of fact, that study that they had in there, they said that they showed an accident sequence by slides, and they showed these folks and they said, okay, they split the room and they did half with the yield sign and half with the stop sign. Those people that they interviewed with the yield sign, the interviewer kept saying stop sign instead of yield sign. Would you like to guess what happened to the testimony? They no longer were referring to it as a yield sign. They were calling it a stop sign because that's what the interviewer had constantly said during the process. You can lead that discussion if you're not careful and change their memory. Also, key words that you can use. So, what did you see when the vehicle smashed into the other one? The word smash brings up what? Glass. Major damage, right? Because it's not a fender bender anymore because he smashed into the front of the other vehicle. What are you thinking is happening? You can see it with your mind, can't you? Smash, glass going everywhere, parts of the car being broken and everything else like that. That's another part of that, okay? So you have to keep in mind you have influence. The other part of this is if they do entertainment storytelling, because we know how that works, right? So when we tell stories, are we accurate? Because we all know it's not a good story. The way it happened, I had to add a little to it. So this is what happened. My dad is a practical joker, and God love him, but he's gotten himself into some trouble sometime. I was a young kid. I was about 12 years old, and it's July 3rd. The next day, they're going to have the big parade in my hometown, Pueblo, Colorado. They pulled me in, and my friends got to stay outside late. So it's 9 o'clock. I'm in my room. I'm going, this sucks, but anyway. My mom goes to the store. She goes outside, and all my friends are hanging out by the light post. And when they go out there, my mom goes to get in the car. Where are you going, Mrs. Smith? Well, running away from home, going to Timbuktu, never coming back again. She goes to the store, she comes back, they're still out there. She gets in that, they said, well, he knew you weren't running away. So she comes in the house, she relays the story to my dad. My dad goes out in the garage and he gets a suitcase. Next thing I know is I hear my parents yelling at one another. It's like, oh no, what's now going on? So I come out of my room just in time to see Mom go out the front door. Dad opens up the door and says, and here, take your suitcase with you. And he throws the suitcase out the door after her. She gets in the car, and she had her prearranged to go over to a friend's house. And, they waited till the kids went to bed, and then she came back home. Okay. Would you like to hear the story that got back to my parents about 2 weeks later? After it had been filtered through the block a little bit? Apparently, my folks had gotten into a real bad argument. Dad was slapping Mom around. She came out of the house, her cheeks were red, she was crying. Dad threw the suitcase after her. The suitcase hit the ground, busted open. All her clothes went flying all over the place. She was out in the front yard crying as she was repacking her clothes, threw her clothes in the suitcase, got in the car, and nobody saw her for 2 weeks, even though she was at the parade the next day. This is what happens when we have a tendency to tell entertainment. Now, do you think people recognize the difference when they start doing that entertainment stuff? Because now that can have an effect on their accurate retelling. So keep those things in mind.